I look at what we have available to us as it pertains to Medal of Honor, and while it isn't nothing, but it's something that should be a lot more. We have a great and extensive history with this franchise, and while I am more on the biased side of things, I really do not think we have a bad title within this series. Sure, there are others that rank higher than some, but as a series it's solid, with some really great games. With games being exclusive to different systems, like the wealth of titles being found on various consoles, the PC has a few specific titles, along with even a handheld game too. But like, if you're going to try and go into this series today, and you want a more normal or easier way to access them, without even toying around with emulation or anything like that, there really isn't a way to do this. You can play a few here and a few there, depending on what family of systems you're on. But there is a lack of unification. This is something that could be greatly remedied if EA actually cared to do something with this property that they keep holding on to. Remember when Sony was trying to cash in on that classic mini console, and they came out with that PlayStation 1 Classic? It had a bunch of games on it, but oddly enough it was missing several big hitters, like say Tomb Raider or even Medal of Honor. So I would say at the first modern-ish opportunity to actually incorporate a way to bring Medal of Honor back in some capacity failed right there. Who actually decided on the list of games that it had? Not all of the games were bad. There were some really good picks. We even had the likes of Siphon Filter on there, which was nice. But as it pertains to Medal of Honor, I think it was a big missed opportunity to not include it at all. Arguably one of the biggest shooters on the platform. While Underground is also a great game, it's one that often gets overlooked, which would be ideal for a collection set, as you could show off a more hidden gem. But not including Medal of Honor 1? Are you kidding me? That game was and is fantastic. Yes, I understand that this classic system was long ago, but sort of where we saw an instance to get these titles back in some way. No effort was actually made, at least one I did not see. Next up, I think it was a great idea, but sort of a botched one at the same time, was the Frontline remaster that was bundled in to the Medal of Honor reboot. So on the PS3, if you bought Medal of Honor, you also got access to Frontline in a remastered format. And I'm like, cool, that's a nice little extra for your console. And one would think that this game would then be released on, say, the Xbox after a set period of time. But that never ended up happening. This just seemed like a really bad choice. You had the remaster right there. Frontline was on the original Xbox. You remastered it. Put it on the 360 at the time. But this remaster has stayed on the PS3 for years. Even dumber was how this remaster was never released standalone after the reboot of Medal of Honor came out. That would have been a good way to get more people interested in it. Be like, oh, you can buy the remaster by itself now if you're interested. And at the time, put it on everything, Xbox and yes, even the PC. Again, another odd move was that even when PlayStation started featuring some PS2 games, way before the Classics program, you had a handful of titles like some Star Wars games and Rockstar stuff. Why was the Frontline remaster never put out here? It would actually make sense to put it there. Seems silly you wouldn't want to do it again. Now years later, EA sits on a remaster of a title that is universally considered one of the best entries in the series, and yet still nothing. This one just baffles me to no end. Now this brings me to the easy route for EA and even PlayStation to take, but the Medal of Honor games should be released on the PlayStation Classics catalog. If you are unfamiliar with this, this is where Sony has been slowly adding older games, so that you can buy and access them on your PS4 and 5. If you own them on the previous store, these games are then put back into your library and now you can play them again. While the Classics program is not perfect, it does allow you to play some of your old favorites again. I have been grateful for the games that have been on there, like say the Sly Cooper trilogy, Time Splitters, and most of the Siphon Filter games. But when you are a Medal of Honor fan, and you see the wealth of titles just on the PS1 and 2, it seems like a no-brainer to then add all of those titles found there. That would include Medal of Honor, Underground, Frontline, Rising Sun, European Assault, and Vanguard. Apparently Sony is working on better emulation of the PS3 game, to then have them play natively on the PS4 and 5, like how they're done for the PS1 and 2 games. If they do that, then it opens up the door for Airborne and the two modern Medal of Honor games. I understand that this probably takes some work to get this stuff working again, but it's not like you're making a new game from the ground up. You are putting them back out there. They aren't even remastered, just re-released. To me, that is easy PR and money. Plus, you could use this as a way to really gauge interest in doing anything new with your series. But no, still nothing on this front from both EA and Sony. I look at this stuff and I just see a company like EA that has a firm grip on a bunch of great properties, including Medal of Honor and others that I miss, and yet they don't do anything with them. Truthfully, they probably don't know the best way to make a new game that they could then monetize to extract lots of extra money out of the player, when anything new related to Medal of Honor should be something more old-fashioned. A new game should be a single-player story game, old-school briefings and all of that. Not a title focused on multiplayer, but something smaller in scope. The older games hold up considerably well. Putting the older titles on the PlayStation catalog is an easy win, and then exposes a lot of new gamers to this older series. That could help to slowly generate some more interest in maybe doing something interesting with this property. Now I know what you're thinking. Releasing these on the PlayStation doesn't really solve the problem, because it would only mean that the PlayStation gets it. I completely agree. If I had creative control, I would slowly work on releasing remasters for these titles and get them on all major platforms, along with many of them being on PC for the first time, or vice versa with the Assault PC titles coming to console. Give them to the Aspyr and Saber team that did the Tomb Raider and Soul Reaver remasters, or Night Dive Studios, some studio that actually cares about gaming preservation. Because outside of the limited access to some of these titles, a little here on Xbox and a little here on PC, gamers really only have one main route to playing these games, and that is through emulation. EA is missing out on easy wins here. I don't know how they don't see that. And if PlayStation is holding up the releases, the same goes for them. I am more interested in these older titles than anything else, and I want more people to have better access to them. Maybe someday that will happen. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think EA should put these titles on the PlayStation catalog, or maybe remaster them altogether? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.